2010 may be the year of incumbents living dangerously.
Today, two Democrats battling for Pennsylvania's U.S. Senate seat. Arlen Specter, a 30-year Senate veteran, and his challenger, two-term Congressman Joe Sestak. Then, Republican Senator Robert Bennett, the first high-profile casualty of voter anger at All Things Washington. And we'll preview Tuesday's elections with political reporters John Mercurio and Julie Mason. I'm Candy Crowley, and this is State of the Union.
Tuesday, voters in Oregon, Kentucky, Arkansas, and Pennsylvania go to the polls, mostly for primary contests. This morning, we start with a fierce race in Pennsylvania. 80-year-old Arlen Specter in the electoral fight of his life. The Republican-turned-Democrat once led his opponent, Joe Sestak, by more than 20 points, but now Specter's in trouble. One poll released this week has Specter tied with Sestak. Another shows Specter down by 9. Elected to the House in 2006, Sestak spent most of his life in the military, rising to vice admiral, a background which made him the Democrats' go-to guy on defense and military matters. He is not the go-to guy now. The Democratic establishment from the president down is behind Specter. As aggressive as he is disciplined, Sestak has largely gone it alone. So despite 4 years on Capitol Hill, he has campaigned as an outsider, a very good place to be on the campaign trail of 2010. Joining me now, Democratic Congressman and candidate for U.S. Senate, Joe Sestak. Thank you, Congressman, for being here. I have to tell you,
Good to be with you, Candy.
Thank you. I saw a poll recently that really intrigued me, and it was about approval and disapproval, and 52% in this Quinnipiac poll said they didn't know enough about you to approve or disapprove. That says to me that this is a race about the incumbency of Arlen Specter rather than about you.
Well, I think it's a race that actually where everybody knows Washington's broken. And everybody knows that if you're going to still send back to Washington, D.C. a career politician that actually would switch his party, as he said, to keep his job, then we're not going to fix the mess that we got into by sending him back. And so, yes, he's a poster child for what's gone wrong in Washington, D.C., a generation of politicians who think that they can take a position not based upon conviction or core beliefs, but about their electoral prospects. So it is time, people say, for a different generation, a new generation, new ideas, new energies, and someone who'd be willing to lose their job over doing what's right for the people of Pennsylvania.
You are not at this moment really a Washington outsider. You're a two-term congressman, but obviously Senator Specter has been around for 5 terms, and that's a good deal longer in the Senate as well. But are you saying that you do believe this is an anti-incumbent year, regardless of whether you're a Democrat or a Republican?
Again, I really do think that Massachusetts said it very clearly for everyone. Pox on both your houses down there. We voted for change, not just in policy, but politics. They are tired. People are tired of the old retread, tired politics of old, where we watched in that health care bill, my establishment, Democratic establishment, say, through political calculation, we might have a 60th vote with Arlen Specter, and it continued all the way down to Ben Nelson, willing to give his vote up only for a special interest. Look, I want to go to Washington, and I want to be a public servant who does principled compromise, but not a compromise of principle.
Your ascendancy in the polls, because in most of them we're now seeing you about even, sometimes a little bit ahead of Senator Specter, with, we should say, about 12% undecided, so that's a very important 12%. But nonetheless, you are to the left of Senator Specter. Do you see this as the left being upset with the direction of Washington, in particular the Obama administration?
This is absolutely not about President Obama. And I don't characterize myself as left or right. I look at myself as very pragmatic. I think that Democrats can surely have somebody who believes in democratic principles. And yes, I am standing up against the Democratic establishment in Washington, D.C. I have been down there 2 or 3 years trying to effect the change that's needed. and I'm not running my congressional job simultaneously, even though I could, to demonstrate isn't about Joe Sestak. It isn't about Arlen Specter. It's about the right policies for working families, small business tax cuts, educational opportunity, and health security for all.
I know you don't like to characterize yourself on the political spectrum, but the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, in endorsing Senator Specter, called you a true blue liberal who has little chance of winning. You've just gotten the endorsement of MoveOn.org, which is a liberal organization. When you look at your record, you're almost 100% voting with Speaker Nancy Pelosi. You have voted for every major spending bill so far in the Obama administration. Is it possible that you may be in sync with your party, but not in sync with an electorate in general that seems to be moving to the right and is, for one thing, really upset with spending?
Absolutely not.
Except for you voted for all those bills.
I went to Washington, D.C. Yes, but notice I voted for pay as you go, which Arlen Specter, Pat Toomey, Rick Santorum, and George Bush threw out and tripled the debt. Every one of those bills was paid for without adding to the debt. And, oh, by the way, notice that against Pat Toomey, Arlen Specter loses by 12 points, 50-38. And I'm tied with Pat Toomey because people honestly know that from the military and my 3 years in Congress, I do believe in the right investment, but in an accountable way. Republicans, I believe, before George Bush, used to have a sense of accountability. But Arlen Specter with George Bush threw out that fiscal conservatism that I believe in.
Congressman, there was an editorial in the Wall Street Journal entitled "The Democrats' Civil War." If you lose this primary, will you support Senator Specter and urge your supporters to do so?
What I know is this, that in a war, you always know you're going to succeed. And so I'm going to win. And I'm looking forward to Senator Specter's support after 18 May.
And if you look forward to his support, can he look forward to yours?
Never deal with something that's not going to happen. We are going to win because the working families are the ones that win when we do win.
Congressman, one last question, and I don't want to do a go-round with you about what happened when you left the military and what the circumstances were, and yet this has been an issue in your campaign, and I watch politics enough to understand that if you've got a problem, the thing to do is to get things out there. And so the question is, why wouldn't you put your record, your military record out there to get the questions to stop? Because doesn't it look like you're hiding something?
A 30-year incumbent Republican senator who's left his troops on the field, the Republican Party, came to the other side to keep his jobs. As a 30-year veteran, I don't know Arlen Specter anything. My record is public.
How about
I joined in the Vietnam era, and I retired in Afghanistan. And my chief of naval operations, the head admiral, went on the record to say, Joe Sestak. He was courageous in changing the Navy. He challenged people in the Rumsfeld administration who didn't want to be challenged. Look, I retired because I asked to put in my papers. My daughter had a brain tumor, and I needed 3 years to retire as a 3-star admiral. I only had one in. I did what any father would do. I addressed the issue. And for Arlen Specter to say anything else is absolutely false. In fact, it's like sometimes, Candy, you may know politics, but you know what? I believe principle matters. And for Arlen Specter to use false assertions says more about him and what he'll do besides just switch a party. He'll just say whatever he wants in order to keep his job. We're not going to have it here in Pennsylvania. And I'm not ever going to be able to strong enough to say, no, Arlen, you and those right-wing Republicans did it to John Kerry. You did it to Max Cleland, not again.
Well, John Kerry did put out his records, just to sort of, again, put that out there. And is it about Arlen Specter or the people of Pennsylvania?
John Kerry did, but I stood up. The people who are standing around me today care about one thing, Candy, which Arlen Specter's never spoken about, even when he switched parties and said it was to keep his job. It's about their jobs, that Washington, D.C., because of politics, actually let them lose. No. I have put out there time and again the Pennsylvania Working Families Plan, but during our debate, not once did Arlen say what was wrong with it or what he would do after having driven this economy aground with George Bush. No, we're going to fight, as we always have, on the issues that will help with principled compromise, always letting principle triumph over politics, the policies that the people standing around here in Philadelphia who lost 100,000 jobs over the last 30 years need.
Congressman Joe Sestak, not much time to go. Actually, we will see you up in Philadelphia next Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining us.
Looking forward to it, Candy, and thanks for having me.
Sure, thank you. Up next, we will hear from Congressman Sestak's political opponent in this Tuesday's primary, Senator Arlen Specter.